Episode 3 of The Bad Batch. By far one of the darkest episodes of The Bad Batch and the Clone Wars yet. A really awesome detail is that the episode doesn't just revolve or follow around one character or group, but it actually follows multiple perspectives. And also there's no intro, which we used to get on the Clone Wars and the beginning of the Bad Batch. It's probably symbolizing how the war against the Separatists and Republic is over and the age of the Empire has come. As the episode begins, we see the ship in hyperspace, and we can also see that the ship is leaking sparks. Of course, foreshadowing how the ship will come out of hyperspace and crash. As the camera zooms in, we can see Echo's helmet next to Omega, who is laying down using the gonk droid that Wrecker brought in as a pillow. We can see her using an old data pad, which by the way were later replaced by extremely thin data pads by the Empire. The datapad we see her using is actually a Republic error one. Hunter then comes in and acknowledges / foreshadows Omega's new room by saying how it doesn't look comfortable. I really love how they acknowledge that the crew is still getting used to having Omega as one of them, showing it through Wrecker asking for Omega's food when Hunter goes around giving out the rations. The scene also shows how childish Wrecker is. Then the lights cut out. Also, Echo mentions how there's a whole list of things that have gone wrong with the ship already, showing how the ship is very damaged. All of a sudden, as Echo and Tech were talking, the ship got ripped out of hyperspace, crashing into one of the small moons. Then comes a really awesome reference to one of the greatest movies of all time, Alien. As they're crashing, it's pretty clear that they are referencing Alien. Also, another thing while they're crashing is Wrecker hits his head. Okay, so before I go any further, I just wanted to say that this part is not my idea or theory, it's actually Star Wars Theory's theory, which is basically a theory that when Wrecker hit his head, it activated or deactivated his inhibitor chip. And that's why his head was acting up for the rest of the episode, and also why Tech was talking about the little machine he was working on. That's kind of like a multi-tool for inhibitor chips. It can scan them, take them out. I don't really know exactly all the things that it can do, but like I said, it's kind of like a multi-tool. When they actually crash, Tech informs the rest of the crew that he suspects that it's one of their capacitors that sustained damage. And that's when Omega tries to find another capacitor and stumbles across a box that used to belong to Crosshair for his weapons. We then get to see how the group still misses him, and in my opinion, it definitely foreshadows them going back to get him. Then Omega gives some insight, showing how Crosshair is still a good person, but because of his inhibitor chip, he's just acting up. That scene also shows how Omega knows a lot of information about the clones. The next thing we see is Crosshair coming out of a scanner type machine, where he is then greeted by a medical droid, possibly the same droid we saw earlier in the season and in season 5 of the Clone Wars. Then the scene cuts to Tarkin standing behind the glass talking to a Kamino doctor. The Kaminoan doctor then informs Tarkin that Crosshair is responding well to the procedure, for Tarkin then to say, let's see if he stays that way. So what they're most likely talking about is how they possibly raised his chip levels to compare to his quote-unquote defects. We then see Rampart come in, which by the way we actually see him in episode 2. He's the annoying guy speaking through the hologram to the village. I definitely believe that he's going to play a very big part in the show, but I'll touch on that later in the video. Rampart then reveals that he has a group of non-clone recruits, which is honestly incredible because we're hopefully going to start seeing the fall of Kamino and the clones. Which by the way, I have a whole video coming out on Monday or Tuesday all about Kamino, so watch out for that. Rampart also reveals that Crosshair will be leading the group of recruits, which definitely scares the Kaminoan doctor. We then get to see the group of recruits, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had a brain fart for a split second and thought that the girl was Versio from Battlefront, even though she would be like -3 years old. Through the episode, we see Rampart just trying to convince Tarkin to stop using clones, and he's all around just a really annoying character. And I feel like he's trying to convince Tarkin for a secret reason. like he's gonna turn. I just don't trust him. I also really love how Tarkin is really unbiased and kinda thinks like Palpatine. It's no secret why Palpatine trusts him. The next scene shows Echo and Tech repairing the ship, and oh my god, I love it. It's such an awesome callback to The Empire Strikes Back. It's just really amazing to see, because we've had callbacks to the sequels and prequels, but it's not very often that we get to see callbacks to the original trilogy. I mean, they really copied a lot of things, and I really love how they did that. Down to the masks, eerie feeling, fog, and spooky animals moving in the shadows. Then Echo says how the capacitor holds a massive charge, which of course foreshadows how the animal loves electric charge. As the creature takes the capacitor, Omega gets a good look and tells Echo. Then Echo reveals that it's actually a Ordu moon dragon. We then see the recruits being very arrogant and clearly not experienced. Furthermore, showing how the Empire is probably going to stay with the clones for a while. But they do kind of switch the mood whenever one of the recruits stays loyal to the Empire and kind of bashes the Republic in a way. Tarkin then sends them on a mission to test them in combat on Alderaan to wipe out Saw Gerrera's camp. Cut back to Hunter and Omega as they are hunting down the Ordu moondragon that got the part that they need. We then see Omega yet again copy Hunter by picking up moon dust and pretending to track. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it's kind of getting old just seeing her copy everything he does. But don't get me wrong, I love it and it's awesome. Omega then talks to Hunter about Crosshair, and to be honest, it's really emotional, but Hunter then says how he's not mad at Crosshair, but for himself for leaving him behind. And if you ask me, I definitely think that is foreshadowing them rescuing Crosshair. By the way, there was someone who commented on my last video and left a really awesome theory that Fennec could take the place of Crosshair, and honestly, I feel like that would be really cool. And also really sad because we would lose Crosshair forever. And then we see Crosshair's new group going straight to Alderaan. And we see just how much of a difference there is having human recruits and not clones. And we get to see one of the human recruits kind of trash on Crosshair a little bit, possibly foreshadowing how Crosshair kills him. We then cut to the small group of rebels talking about Saw Gerrera and how he wasn't there but they were actually going to meet up with him. Shortly after that, the troopers find them and begin an awesome firefight. Cut back to Hunter and Omega as they find the part they need. As Hunter approaches, out of nowhere the Ordu moondragon lunges at Hunter and knocks his mask off, as the moondragon runs into a small cave. Then we see Hunter faint. Omega then takes it upon herself to get the part back, and bravely goes headfirst into the dangerous cave. Cut back to Alderaan, where a massive firefight is going on, and the whole group of rebels is being completely destroyed. Then comes the darkest scene in the whole show, where they fire on the civilians. Now, if anyone says that the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch is a kid's show, just show them this scene. It's a really dark and disturbing scene, and it also shows the beginning of the brutalness of the stormtroopers, and how some of them aren't willing to do what needs to be done, but most are, and the small percent that aren't willing to do it, well, they get fried. Then cut back to Omega, where she is trying to find the part they need. And she finds it, but soon after the Ordu moondragon finds her and corners her, and then it's right there that she finds out that the Ordu moondragon only wants to feed on electric charge. So she distracts it by throwing a flashlight at the wall and escapes. And we can also see how Hunter was really scared for her, but at the same time impressed. Then we see Crosshair returning to Kamino with the recruits, where Crosshair tells Tarkin that he's done what he was told. Then Tarkin basically says how the clones are good for now, but they will stop using them soon. To be honest, I feel like Palpatine should be in charge of if they switch from clones or not. It plays such a huge part in the Empire. Then there's a really awesome scene with two Kaminoans talking about switching from the Jango Fett clone, which would be huge. Next, we see Crosshair and his new group going to their barracks, which it's really sad to see Crosshair alone. And then the final scene where they ride off into hyperspace. Then we get to see Wrecker spent a lot of time working on a room for Omega. Overall, I think it's a really nice and wholesome scene. it's awesome to see Omega kind of react to normal life. And that was today's video. I really hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy this video, then make sure to drop a like, and if you enjoy this kind of content, maybe consider subscribing. And with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, may the Force be with you all.